At 9 sharp, Chicago glittered in Marcus Whitfield's penthouse like a jewelry box left open. Golden light washed the marble, the band slid into a lazy standard, and I stood in an emerald dress Caleb had chosen, not complimented. I'm 62, a black woman who spent 4 decades inside cold operating rooms. I know the sound of instruments meeting steel. Laughter can cut sharper. "Smile more tonight," Caleb whispered, his hand hovering at my back like a label. "Don't talk shop. No blood, no valves, just weather." He scanned the room, the partners, the clients, the polished wives. I watched his eyes, because that's where the truth always leaks. The music softened. Couples drifted to the cleared floor. I remembered another dance. December 12th, 5 years ago. The Drake Hotel at 2 a.m. Champagne on our breath and promises warm as our hands. Back when he waited outside recovery with lilies, not instructions. "We'll have everything," he'd said then. It's astonishing how quickly everything becomes inventory. I touched his sleeve. "One song," I said, "with your wife." He calculated. I saw the math travel across his face. Networking cost versus optics gained. "Gentlemen, excuse me," he said to Bradley and some client, and guided me half an arm's length from himself, the distance he considered respectable. We moved. Not quite. We completed steps. His smile belonged to the room, not me. I tried to close the inch of air between us, to land somewhere familiar. His body stiffened, eyes skimming horizons I didn't occupy. Who arrived, who mattered, who watched. So I leaned in. Small, nothing theatrical, just a kiss married people earn after long days and shared umbrellas. He jerked back, violence in the gesture, crystal catching the echo. "I'd rather kiss my dog than kiss you," he said, perfectly pitched for witnesses. Laughter fractured around us. Marcus, head tossed. Jennifer with a hand over her mouth. Bradley clapping once, delighted. I felt the heat climb my face, and then colder, the descent of clarity. Surgeons know when a rhythm can't be restored. We stop shocking a dead heart. "You don't even meet my standards," Caleb added, louder, owning the stage. I let the pain pass through like anesthesia that wouldn't take. At my age, I don't shout. I document. The clutch at my wrist held more than lipstick. Timestamps, transfers, a clipped recording where Caleb and Bradley practiced a different kind of dance. Erase this, move that, before the quarterly. I lifted my chin and measured the room. The chandelier's wattage, the terrace doors ajar by 2 inches. Marcus's watch reading 9:03, the server refilling champagne at the bar. Jennifer's necklace, March 28th purchase, $42,000, one of the Sherman Trust withdrawals. All of it, evidence. Caleb smirked, sure he'd taught the room a trick. Cruelty looks like power. I smiled back, the way I do before I cut, steady, economical, precise. If humiliation is an instrument, so is the scalpel. If you've ever been laughed at and came back with proof instead of noise, type "stronger" in the comments. Subscribe to our channel. This helps our work reach more people. The music swelled. The room leaned closer. I slid my phone awake and found the file named Fitzgerald, Monday, 10 a.m. The bank stamp on the transfer read $50,000, Cayman Islands. After the laugh, people avoided my eyes like mirrors. That's how shame works. It travels fastest through witnesses. I set my empty flute on the bar and asked the bartender for water. My hands didn't shake. They simply learned a new task. Look calm, move quiet, start the clock. "Claire, darling." Jennifer drifted near, perfect and powdered. "That dress is divine. Caleb has such taste." "He certainly has something," I said, watching Marcus confer with Bradley by the terrace. The band changed tunes. Velvet turned to glass. I checked my phone, 9:12. In 8 hours and 48 minutes, federal agents would walk into Davidson, Klein & Associates. If the timing held. 5 years ago, December 12th, the date sticks. I skipped my father's 70th because Caleb insisted on a critical client dinner. Later, Instagram told a different story. Confetti, not clients. That was the first time I saved a receipt out of love for myself, not the bill. They called me sensitive, I remind myself now. Sensitive doesn't mean blind. He returned, fixing his cufflink the way he fixes the narrative. "You made a scene," he murmured. "You made a line," I said. "I'm just quoting it." He leaned closer, smile stapled in place. "Don't start. Not here." I tilted my head, as if listening to the band. "Do you prefer the Caymans or Panama?" I asked softly. "For the light? I hear both are lovely." A blink, the smallest fracture in his manufactured face. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Fitzgerald," I said, precisely the way an anesthetist says now. "Check your pulse." His throat worked. "You will not embarrass me." "You already did," I said. "But give me credit. I like a tidy ending." He started to reach for my wrist, old reflex, but remembered the eyes. He dropped his hand. "We'll discuss this at home." "We won't," I said. "I have surgery at dawn." That part was true tomorrow, 6:30 a.m. A valve repair on a 17-year-old from Lincoln Park, the kind of case that puts your life in order better than any sermon. Some of us show up where hearts depend on it. I walked, slow and deliberate, the way my mother taught me to leave rooms. Head high, evidence higher. In the hallway toward the powder room, I opened the clutch. The phone glowed. The folder named Sunday, Final held the audit report, cross-reference to his conference badges, his Uber receipts, the IP login that landed 3 inches from our kitchen router. I took a photo of the chandelier from the doorway. Reflections map angles. Handy later, if someone questions who stood where when the truth came out. Documentation isn't romantic. It wins. "Dr. Morrison." A server, soft voice. "You dropped this." A gold button. Caleb's. How fitting. I thanked him and put it in a side pocket. Trinkets tell stories. Back in the main room, I tested the air. Curiosity had replaced glee. Even laughter gets tired. Marcus caught my eye and faltered. Guilt always knows its name. Bradley checked his phone, typed too fast. Caleb was nowhere visible, which meant he was arranging a script he could not afford. At my age, I've learned to love precise time. 9:27. In 33 minutes, I'd leave with more than dignity. The problem wasn't that he lied. It was that he filed the lies like assets. The memory returns like a surgical scar, faded, but raised enough to trace with your thumb. December 12th, 5 years ago, the night my father turned 70. He'd called twice that morning, his voice cracking with excitement. "You'll come, right, Pumpkin? I even made your favorite, lemon pound cake." I was already in front of the mirror then, fastening the pearl earrings Caleb had given me on our 3rd anniversary. He walked in holding 2 black garment bags. "We can't drive to Milwaukee tonight," he said, not looking up from his phone. "Marcus just confirmed a client dinner. Critical. You'll be the only woman there. Represent us well." "Us," he said. The way men like him use that word. It means him. I told him Dad would be disappointed. Caleb kissed my cheek like a doctor signing a prescription. "Tell him the hospital called. Emergencies are more believable than fathers." He never asked if it hurt. That night, in the restaurant's reflection, I saw my face among a dozen silver forks and business cards. I smiled through 3 hours of jargon, ROI, liquidity, asset performance, none of which could measure the loss of watching my father's candles from a screen later through my sister's live stream. He'd waved at the camera, said, "That's for you, Claire." Later, Caleb whispered in bed, "Networking matters more than nostalgia." He fell asleep before I answered. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan, counting rotations. 1, 2, 3, like heartbeats under anesthesia. That was the night I learned that love without respect is a slow bleed. Now 5 years later, the same dress from that dinner hangs in the back of my closet, a fossil of compliance. I keep it to remember what obedience costs. In the hospital lounge last week, I'd shown Mom the discrepancy. 2 overlapping conference trips, same expense ID, different continents. She'd squinted, her accountant's brain humming. "See that?" she said, tapping the date. "December 12th, 5 years ago, Cayman Shell opens." The same night, I skipped my father's birthday. The circle closed like a perfect incision. He lied to my family the same night he began stealing from strangers. The pain twisted, clean and purposeful now. It stopped being heartbreak. It became evidence. At 10:14 p.m. tonight, 5 years of humiliation and bookkeeping will meet in the same place. I can almost hear the clock in his office. The first transaction he ever forged carries my father's birthday on the timestamp. The party thinned, the music slipped into background chatter, and the air smelled of champagne and cover-up perfume. I stayed near the bar, watching reflections multiply in the mirrored wall. Caleb, Marcus, Bradley, men orbiting money like it was oxygen. I opened my clutch beneath the counter and checked the report again. Fitzgerald account, $50,000, March 15th, Cayman subsidiary. The number glowed coldly against the screen. Next to it, a note from my forensic contact. IP match, Hartley Residence Network, router ending in 7F6. He'd done it from our home Wi-Fi, from my kitchen, between my shifts and his lies. I scrolled further. Another document, a conference schedule. He was supposedly in Miami that week. Yet his Uber receipts traced him from our condo to a boutique hotel 2 blocks from his office. The same hotel where his intern, Amanda, had checked in 30 minutes later. It wasn't just theft. It was choreography. "Everything okay, Dr. Morrison?" Marcus's wife, Patricia, appeared beside me, too polite for real curiosity. "Perfect," I said, closing the clutch. "I just remembered a call I need to make." I stepped out onto the terrace. Cold air, distant traffic. Chicago glowing like circuitry beneath me. That's when I heard it. His laugh again, faint through the glass. I recorded 15 seconds of it, time-stamped 10:32 p.m. Proof of tone, location, arrogance. My fingers found the clasp of the clutch, the metal cool as a scalpel handle. Inside were 3 things. My phone with the full audit. A silver USB engraved with his initials. A gold button he'd lost tonight. Small, symbolic. Sometimes God leaves you props for the scene finale. I texted Mom 1 line. "Everything matches, schedule holds, Monday, 10 a.m. She replied instantly, the way mothers who already know the ending do. "Make it clean, no emotion, just numbers." I slid the phone back and watched my reflection in the glass. Woman, 62, surgeon, ghost of every party where silence kept the peace. The emerald dress caught the light. No longer costume, but camouflage. Caleb had told me once, "You're too methodical. Not everything needs evidence." He was wrong. Everything does. But why did the Cayman shell share an IP with our home Wi-Fi? By 11, the band shifted to standards rich men propose under, and the room smelled like victory someone else paid for. I moved through the clusters, the way I move past retractors, steady, eyes on the field. Marcus clinked a spoon to glass. "Friends," he beamed, "let's talk Hamilton. Caleb and Claire are taking a table. 50,000 for the Children's Theater." Heads turned. Applause. Cameras. My name became decor. Caleb lifted his glass. "Visibility matters," he said, like a benefactor. Visibility. I thought of the pediatric monitors our ward had begged the board to approve. 30,000 denied for budget priorities. My patient scheduled for 6:30 a.m. tomorrow would benefit from the model we couldn't buy. I saw his mother's face again, the kind that prays while pretending not to, and felt my jaw tighten. I stepped forward. "We'd love to see those funds redirected," I said lightly. "Same amount, different children, pediatric cardiology, monitors we actually need." A pause, then a ripple of discomfort, like a gown tearing under a gloved hand. Caleb's smile thinned. "Claire, we discussed this. The gala is a platform." "So is a hospital bed," I said. "Ours has a 15-inch display with a 5-year-old firmware." Marcus chuckled, not kindly. "Let the men handle the boring allocation, doctor. You save lives. We grease wheels." "Grease burns," I said. Bradley, eyebrows up. "Is she always this combative?" "Only when people confuse philanthropy with laundering," I answered, and felt the room sharpen. Caleb's fingers closed around my elbow. "A word," he said. We stepped into the corridor where the lighting stopped pretending to be flattering. "You will not embarrass me," he hissed. The mask was off. The boy inside the man had a mean streak and a fear of drought. "The firm needs this table. My track depends on it. You love saving things? Save the performance. Your performance cost real machines, I said. 30,000. A child's arrhythmia, missed in the night. He leaned in until I smelled the whiskey. You will sit, you will smile, and you will sign. If you cross me again tonight, I cut off access. Cards, accounts, the condo, all of it. My laugh surprised me. The quiet kind that arrives when fear leaves. You do realize your access relies on mine now? You're in for a shock if you think your salary scares me, he said. I'll bury you in lawyers. I prefer documents, I said, showing him my unlocked phone for 2 seconds. The audit cover page with his name, the wire chain, the IP match. His face drained, then flushed, then rearranged itself into denial. You fabricated this, he said. Not my specialty, I answered. I repair. I also record. March 15th, 3:47 p.m. Ring a bell? He straightened, adjusting his cuff. The gesture he uses when there's nothing left to adjust. You don't have the nerve. At my age, I don't use nerve, I said. I use timing. Back in the ballroom, Marcus raised a paddle for another pledge. Jennifer posed beside a glass case with a diamond necklace labeled March 28th, Donor Acquisition, Sherman Trust, 42,000. My phone held the withdrawal on the same date, same amount, same store. The case label and my screenshot could shake hands in any court. I stood very still, letting the stakes settle around us. 50,000 for a headline, 30 mil for machines, and 100,000 in secrets I hadn't spent yet. The band slid into Blue Moon, and for once, the lyric made sense. Lonely isn't the problem. Lying is. I checked the time, 11:18. In 10 hours and 42 minutes, agents would test the integrity of their floorboards. If he buys applause with stolen money tonight, I'll send him the receipt in handcuffs tomorrow. I tried. One last time, because closing a chest before you're sure is malpractice. I found him near the terrace doors, where the cold slid in and made honesty possible. Home, 10 minutes, I said. We talk, no audience. We fix what can be fixed. He assessed the room first, not me. You'll apologize to Marcus, he said. You'll call Hamilton and confirm the table. I'll call the hospital and confirm the monitors, I said. Bring me your calendar. Let's align truth to dates. He rubbed his temple, the gesture he uses to look burdened by brilliance. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I understand pressure better than anyone in this room, I said. It keeps hearts beating. His eyes hardened. You think your little job makes you righteous? You're an accessory to my life. There it was, the old sentence polished to a gleam. I felt the last thread snap. Then return me, I said. Receipt included. He reached into his jacket and plucked out a folded paper, as if conjuring proof. Here, he said, pushing it into my hand. Power of attorney draft. Transfer of condo title to you. I was protecting us. The date stared up. Drafted, not filed. A prop, like the golf clubs he never used. You were hiding assets, I said. From lawsuits you knew were coming. His laugh was soft and cruel. You won't survive outside this circle. You're cold, unlikable. Men run this city. I'm not looking for a date. I'm looking for a docket. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. If you say one more word tonight, I will ruin you at the hospital. Committee chairs? Donors? They take my calls. I remembered the mother who had blessed me last month after a successful repair, in 3 languages, neither of which spoke money. Try, I said. Bring your voice to a place where only outcomes matter. He smirked. Outcomes? You want an outcome? Try this. He reached for my clutch. Fast is not always sloppy. I pivoted, small, precise, letting his fingers close on air. The clutch stayed with me, the way my hands stay with a suture, steady under threat. You're paranoid, he said. Everyone deletes things before reviews. It's hygiene. I prefer washing with water, I said. Not acid. He checked his phone, jaw tightening. We're done talking. Agreed, I said. For tonight. I turned away and stopped face to face with Jennifer, who had materialized like a conscience wearing silk. Her makeup was immaculate, but the eyes were messy. She glanced at Caleb, then at me, then at the diamond label in the glass case beside us. The pill count at home keeps dropping, she said abruptly, voice too bright. Marcus says I'm imagining it. Some imaginations leave chargebacks, I said. She flushed, looked down, and the necklace suddenly weighed her neck. The bandleader announced midnight in 19 minutes. Countdown. The room began to sway toward the terrace for a staged toast. Caleb slid back into a circle of men, laughing on key, a man who believed the ending still belonged to him. I stepped into the powder room, locked the door, and set the clutch on the marble. Opened, checked my files like instruments before an incision. Audit, clean, audio clear, photos, time-stamped, screenshots, stacked. The silver USB gleamed. Plan A had been mercy. He broke it. I texted Agent Patterson a single word. Confirm. The dots appeared immediately. Confirmed. 10 a.m., Monday. Freeze orders queued. I stared at my own reflection. The woman he called cold. Cold keeps hands from shaking. From the hallway, his voice rose, edging toward volume, rehearsing the story that would smear me before I smeared him. He didn't know I'd already handed tomorrow to the law. I closed the clutch, exhaled, and reached for the doorknob. If you step into that church of money tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'll be waiting at the altar with federal paperwork. Midnight came and went without grace. The chandelier kept pretending everything was gold. My phone kept telling me everything was numbers. I walked the long corridor from the powder room back toward the music, hearing the throb of a bass line that felt like a ventilator, reliable, indifferent. Caleb intercepted me near the coat check, smile lacquered back on. "There you are," he said, stage bright. "Folks were worried." "About what?" I asked. "Oxygen or optics?" He lowered his voice. "I spoke to Marcus. We're aligned. You had too much champagne. You're overwhelmed from surgery stress." His hand hovered an inch above my elbow, ownership without fingerprints. "Tomorrow, you'll call Patricia at the hospital board and clarify you were joking about the monitors. $30,000 is a serious punchline," I said. He looked over my shoulder, scanning for audience. "Listen carefully. If you make noise tonight, you'll regret it. I'll call Dr. Ellis, he chairs your credentialing, and mention your episodes. I'll have 3 witnesses from this room by morning." "Witnesses tend to evolve when evidence enters," I said. "Ask Bradley." Something flickered. He pressed on. "You want the condo? Keep it. I'll sign Monday. I'll even leave the Range Rover. Just keep your mouth shut and act like a wife." The coat check girl turned a ticket in her fingers, pretending not to hear. I thought of my mother's phrase, "act like a ledger," and almost smiled. "Monday is a busy day for you," I said. "Boardroom at 10. He laughed, a brief, ugly sound. "You've always been dramatic, Claire. You keep receipts of feelings." "I keep receipts," I said, "of receipts." Behind him, Jennifer stood still, diamond necklace catching the light, eyes darting between us like a metronome keeping the beat of denial. Marcus approached, hand extended, wedding band catching a scratch in the marble. "Caleb," he said, "the Singapore update." Caleb followed, but threw his voice back at me. "You apologize before you leave. We're not finished." He was wrong. He was finished. He just hadn't read the last page. I drifted toward the windows where the city looked honest, cold, sharp, exact. I opened the clutch, scrolled to the call log. March 15th, 3:47 p.m. The audio file waited. My thumb hovered. Play now would be theatrical. Play later would be lethal. I closed it. Not yet. The room had shifted. Laughter carried a nervous pitch. The band welcomed a singer with too much vibrato. I took a fresh water and paste, cataloging, 2 security cameras in the corners, a mirror facing the terrace, a fingerprint smear on the diamond case, a champagne bucket sweating onto a donation ledger. Details are breadcrumbs. You don't always know which one leads home. My phone lit. Emma, 1:01 a.m. "I'm up." "Need me?" I typed back. "Not yet. Tomorrow 9 a.m., Cafe Luna." Emma understands crucial things, how to arrive, how to be quiet, how to move furniture without asking permission. At 12:41, I watched Bradley palm his phone to his chest and make for the guest office. I followed, slow. Through the cracked door, I caught his whisper. "Delete the sub. Use the Panama route." Then the sweetest word in English for a woman with a case. "Hurry." I recorded the door frame. Time, place, wood grain. Sometime soon, a man in a suit would ask me, "How sure are you?" I am a surgeon. I answer such questions with anatomy. When I turned, Caleb stood at the far end of the hall, arms folded, mouth a thin line. For a moment, no party. Just two people in a corridor that was really a decade. He started toward me, and I slipped into the nearest room, a small library with leather that smelled like ash and inheritance. I locked the door, set the clutch on a side table, and steadied my hands over the screen. "Make it clean," Mom had texted. Clean means no doubt, no extras, no blood. Clean means he can't wriggle through adjectives. A floorboard creaked outside. I lifted my head. The doorknob turned once, twice, then stopped. "Claire, open up," he said, "or I'll tell them what you stole." I didn't open the door. I opened my recorder. Silence can be a perfect witness if you frame it right. The knob, his breath, the angle of threat. 30 seconds. Then his footsteps retreated and my pulse settled back into a professional rhythm. Steady, regular, suturable. When I stepped out, the corridor was empty. A server rolled a cart by, wheels squeaking in a code of its own. "Excuse me," I said softly. "Is there a quieter place to make a call?" His name tag read Luis. He nodded toward a small service balcony past the kitchen. I followed the hum of industrial dishwashers to the back, pushed open a metal door, and met Chicago air that could cleanse a conscience. From my clutch, I pulled the silver USB and my phone. But before I could dial, another door opened and Eleanor stepped out, Caleb's mother, wrapped in sable, dignity pinned at the throat like a brooch. "Good evening, Claire," she said, voice crisp as a subpoena. "I took the long route to avoid witnessing stupidity." "Then you should have left at 9, I said. She almost smiled. "I was late to see, but not too late." She glanced toward the ballroom. "He has his father's charm and every worst habit amplified. I hired an investigator 6 months ago. Your mother and I exchanged notes." I blinked. "You and my mother?" "Retired accountant recognizes retired accountant," she said. "The pension fund discrepancy, mine, was a bell I couldn't unhear." She took a folded paper from her clutch. "Here, the contact at First National who confirmed a safety deposit box in his name, number A1754, gold coins, bearer bonds. He told me it was nostalgia." I scanned the page. The date, August 3rd, signature, a bank manager I knew from heart donation drives. "Why tell me now?" "Because he humiliated you where I could see it," she said, chin lifting. "And because my loyalty ends at felony. I will testify. Understand? This is not maternal grace. It's arithmetic." "Arithmetic keeps people honest," I said. She leaned in, perfume like winter roses and old money. "Claire, I spent years blaming you for not giving me grandchildren. Tonight, I watched him call you less than a dog. That is not a son. That is a narcissus with a pulse." She squeezed my hand once. Unexpected, almost kind. "Finish it." When she left, another figure appeared in the doorway. Luis, again, eyes careful. He looked down the hall, then back at me. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "you didn't hear this from me, okay?" He held out a small black fob, guest office access. "Mr. Bradley asked me to lock this door earlier, but he forgot the spare. He's inside now, on a call, the kind people whisper." I took the fob, feeling the shape of providence. "Thank you, Luis." He shrugged. "My cousin's retirement went missing in a market correction. I like when money finds its way home." He pointed at my phone. "If you need camera angles, there's a dome in the hall and one over the terrace. Both see that door. Blink red every 8 seconds." I nodded, grateful. Unexpected allies are like clamps. The right one at the right time changes the whole field. Back inside, the corridor felt like a timeline. I swiped the fob. The guest office door clicked. I didn't enter. I held the recorder near the hinge gap and angled the lens through the sliver. Inside, Bradley spoke into his phone. "No, listen. Move what's left to Boca Verde Holdings by 8 a.m. Use the Panama route, then..." A pause. "We'll pin it on the Singapore fund. If Patterson asks, we lost access." He said Patterson's name. He moved the clock for me. I stepped back, saved the file, and texted Agent David Patterson. Audio. Bradley coordinating Panama Boca Verde at 1:36 a.m. Mentions you by name. Guest office. Cameras Dome Hall, Terrace. 3 dots. Then. Received. Preserve originals. You're building a better case than my junior staff. Hire my mother, I typed, and slipped the phone away. On my way to the ballroom, I nearly collided with Jennifer. The diamond necklace hung heavy as a secret. Her mascara had begun to remember gravity. Claire, she whispered, I need to ask you something awful. The pills, small, blue, have been disappearing from our cabinet. Could Caleb? Check your purchase dates against withdrawals labeled Sherman Trust, I said. March 28th, 42,000. Also check the guest bath after game nights. Her lips parted. He was there last week, she whispered. He said he needed privacy, I finished. They always do. She touched the necklace, then unclasped it with a fast, frightened motion, lowering it into her clutch as if returning a stolen child. If this is evidence, I'm not wearing it into Monday. It's evidence, I said. She closed her eyes. Then please make it end. I will, I said. But it won't end pretty. My life stopped being pretty a while ago, she whispered. The band slipped into something soft and old. Across the room, Caleb laughed too loudly at nothing, a man keeping time with denial. I checked my watch, 1:58 a.m., 7 hours and 2 minutes to 10. The city outside pulled at the windows like a tide. I looked down at my clutch, USB, audit, recordings, and felt the strange peace that comes to surgeons between incision and closure. The worst is not the cut. The worst is waiting to cut. I started toward the chandelier, toward the stage we hadn't called a stage, toward the microphone nobody knew they'd handed me when they taught me to endure. At 2 a.m., I stopped being the joke and became the exhibit. The chandelier hummed like a beehive. I walked straight to Marcus, who was pretending not to notice how his hands shook around a highball. Have you been through something similar? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every comment. It's important for us to know we're not alone. All glass. Jennifer trailed me, diamond stowed, mouth set. Private, I said. We stepped into the library that still smelled of leather and inheritance. I closed the door, placed my clutch on the table, and set my phone between us like an instrument tray. Claire, Marcus began, smoothing his tie. If this is about Caleb's joke, it's about your father's retirement, I said. The Fitzgerald account. The name pressed the air flat. He tried a laugh. It didn't clear. You're mistaken. I hit play. Caleb's voice filled the small room, calm, managerial, obscene in its casualness. We need to wipe everything before Davidson checks the books, move Fitzgerald through the subsidiary, then shut it down. Make it look like client error. Bradley's voice answered, We'll do it Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. I stopped the audio and slid the phone closer. March 15th, 3:47 p.m. You were at the Bulls game posting courtside. He was at your office with Bradley, borrowing your father's future. Jennifer's hand flew to her throat, then remembered the necklace was gone. Marcus, she whispered, your father called me last week. He said the quarterly looked thin. Marcus stared at the screen like it might bite. Where did you get this? Same place you keep your secrets, I said, right in front of the cameras. He looked at the door, then back at me. You realize what you're suggesting. I'm not suggesting, I said. I'm telling you. Shell company in the Caymans matches our home IP. Your firm's Uber logs place them 2 blocks from here, same afternoon. Fitzgerald wasn't a number to them. It was a mouth to feed. Jennifer took my phone with careful fingers, scrolling to the screenshot labeled March 28th, $42,000, Sherman Trust. She stared at it, then at her reflection in the black screen. That's the necklace case label, she whispered. Same date, same amount. Take the case down, Marcus snapped. Take the lie down, I said. Start there. He turned on me. Why bring this to me? Why not the police? Because the police will be at your conference table in 8 hours, I said. You have that much time to decide if you're a witness or a defendant. A beat. He sank into a chair that did nothing to hold him. How long have you known? Long enough to stop confusing love with loyalty. I opened the silver USB. Here's the audit. Confirm your signatures before you pretend not to recognize them. He didn't take it. Men like Marcus aren't used to touching consequences with their hands. Jennifer did. She slid the drive into the library laptop, angled the screen, and began to read. Names, amounts, dates, the kind of story that never needed adjectives. Outside the door, laughter swelled and thinned again. Inside, the only sound was Marcus's breath as he realized which side of the glass he stood on. "Where is he?" he asked finally, meaning Caleb. "Still performing," I said. "You may want to interrupt the show." He rose, then stopped. "What do you want from me?" "The truth in your own voice," I said. "And one call. To your father. Tell him to look at his statement before someone else does." I picked up my phone and headed for the handle. "Do you want to hear the rest, Marcus? Or call your father first?" I left the penthouse at 2:37 a.m. The valet offered me a smile that knew nothing of empires. I tipped him with the last cash in my clutch and drove through a city that looks honest only when it's empty. In the garage, the Range Rover sat like a boast. I passed it, pressed the elevator for the condo, and unlocked the door to a home that had begun to feel staged. Boxes from the basement, packing tape, a Sharpie. I labeled as I moved: Harvard diploma, cufflinks, watch, graduation, artifacts of a man constructing an exhibit of himself. The gold button from the coat check went into a sandwich bag with tonight's date and time written in block letters. Evidence doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be undeniable. At the desk, I opened the laptop and began the part I'm best at: quiet work. Email drafts to Agent David Patterson with attachments queued and ready, scheduled to send at 9:55 a.m. Audit, screenshots, audio files, photographs of labels and ledgers. A second set to my attorney, Diana Cole, time-stamped, with a list of assets never disclosed. A17-54 safety deposit box, art storage in Schaumburg, boat registration in Michigan, investment property in Wisconsin. A third set to myself at a non-hospital account, because redundancy saves more than systems. I printed hard copies, old-fashioned, heavy as truth, and slid them into a plain manila folder labeled with a single word: Monday. On the kitchen counter, I laid out tomorrow's uniform: navy scrubs, hair ties, the shoes that forgive long hours. I checked the OR schedule. 6:30 a.m. Valve repair, Lincoln Park, HS Senior. Medicine imposes a clean sort of humility. Hearts do not care who laughed at whom at 9 p.m. They care whether your hand can sew without shaking. I brewed coffee at 3:39 a.m. Texted Mom. Everything staged. 9:55 send, 10 freeze. Her reply came fast, as if she'd been sitting on the edge of the bed in her robe waiting. Proud of your math. Sleep 40 minutes, alarm on 2 devices. I set 2 alarms, 4:22 and 4:24, and lay on the couch. Sleep didn't come. Precision did. I pictured the boardroom at 10 a.m., Davidson halfway through quarterly projections, the door opening, the agents' jackets, the moment mouths forget how to make words. At 4:06, I rose again and packed a small envelope for later. The silver USB, the printed audit summary, and one photo of the diamond case label side by side with March 28th, $42,000. I slipped the envelope into my tote behind a paperback copy of The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, a private joke that didn't need to be funny. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then a text. Caleb, we can fix this. Come home. A second. You don't know the damage you'll cause. A third. I'll ruin your name at the hospital. And finally, please. I archived the thread to a folder named Statements, Threat, Appeal. People confess in more ways than one. At 4:24, both alarms sang. I showered, braided my hair, clipped my badge. The sun considered the horizon. On my way out, I noticed the wedding album under tax files. I pulled it free, turned a page, the two of us at the Drake Hotel, barefoot at 2 a.m., a promise still warm. I slid a post-it on the paper. Exhibit A, context only. Then I put it back. Not everything belongs in court. Some things belong in the autopsy of your own illusions. I locked the door and walked to the car with my tote balanced like a tray. By 5:12 a.m., Lakeshore Drive was a ribbon. By 5:28, the hospital swallowed me with its antiseptic mercy. All that remained for the evening's finale was a room with a microphone and a thumb that knew when to press play. Hospital hours make their own weather. By 6:30 a.m., my hands were inside a boy's chest, the monitor drawing a clean skyline of possibility. At 7:14, unexpected scar tissue. At 8:02, a vessel that needed rerouting. We met each problem the way truth meets denial, methodically. At 9:11, I tied the final suture. His heart answered with a steady, grateful drum. Scrubbed out, I checked my phone in the residence lounge. Emails queued for 9:55 a.m. gleamed in drafts like planes waiting on a runway. I swallowed coffee, called Mom. "Vital's good," she said before hello. "Patterson's team standing by." At 9:23, I left the hospital through the side exit and crossed the street to Café Luna, porcelain cups chiming like small bells. Agent David Patterson waited in the corner with his back to the wall, tie slightly askew, the only man in Chicago whose posture didn't irritate me. "Dr. Morrison." He stood briefly. "Sleep?" 40 minutes, I said. Enough to be accurate, not kind. He slid over a compact, government-looking folder. "Seizure orders. We'll execute at exactly 10 a.m. Anything that hits inboxes at 9:55? 3 payloads, I said, tapping my screen. "You, my attorney, me. If I get hit by a bus, the bus will have witnesses." He allowed the shadow of a smile. "You missed your calling in my line of work." "I prefer hearts that learn," I said, "not ones that refuse." We synced watches like a cliché neither of us mocked. At 9:37, my phone buzzed. "Caleb, I'm at the partner meeting. We can still stop this." Another. Last chance. Then a phone call I declined, immediately. I typed back one sentence for the record. Put it in writing. Patterson's eyes flicked to the message and away. "He's circling. They always do when the drains open," I said, and hit send on the first email. Audit. Full. V5. The second. Audio. March 15th, Bradley. The third. Photos. Labels. Withdrawals. Out they went, like instruments handed to a surgeon who doesn't drop them. At 9:49, Patterson placed a small recording device on the table. "You don't have to go to the Whitfields tonight," he said. "You've already done enough." "The room where he laughed is the room I finish this," I said. Pain is geography. Closure should be too. His phone vibrated. He checked it, then nodded to himself. "Agents are staged in the building lobby. We'll go silent until it's done. You should be elsewhere when the raid hits." "I have a better stage," I said, standing to go. "The chandelier." He rose, then paused. "One question, off the record. What made you start documenting?" "December 12th, I said. "A birthday cake I didn't see." He didn't ask more. Good men understand enough to stop. Outside, the city felt like a clock with its glass removed. I walked fast, the tote's shoulder strap biting into my collarbone, the manila folder labeled Monday pressing against my rib like a calm heartbeat. 9:53. I reached the car, dropped into the driver's seat, and watched the seconds ripen. 9:55, emails gone. 9:57, no sirens, just wind. 9:59, a text from Emma. Standing by. 10 a.m. I pictured the boardroom doors opening, the little sea of suits stilled by the tide. I didn't need eyes there. I needed mine focused on the next incision. On Lakeshore Drive, the morning light tried to apologize to the lake. I didn't accept. I drove toward the Whitfields Tower, parked 2 blocks away, and sat for exactly 30 breaths. Then I lifted the tote, checked the USB, and headed for the elevator that would spit me out under the same chandelier where a different woman had once stood, very still. Behind closed doors, I heard the noise a crowd makes when it realizes it was the punchline. I pressed my palm to the cool brass handle and pushed into the room I had turned into an operating theater without their consent. The pianist stopped mid-phrase when he saw what I laid on the marble. I did not ask for quiet. Quiet arrived the way anesthesia does, swift, absolute, blessed. Faces pivoted toward me like sunflowers toward a new light source. Marcus stood near the bar, phone to his ear, colorless. Jennifer hovered by the diamond case, necklace gone, eyes clear as if she had washed them correctly for the first time in years. Bradley had 2 phones in hand and the look of a man searching for a country without extradition treaties. And Caleb was a sculpture of himself, handsome, polished, empty. "What are you doing here?" he said, voice too loud for a morning. I set the manila folder labeled Monday on the central table, the place where donors posed with oversized checks when they wanted to cosplay virtue. "Returning something that belongs to the room," I said. "Facts." He laughed, the sound brittle as spun sugar in humidity. "You are unwell, Claire. Go home. Play," I said to myself, the way I do before taking a first stitch. I unlocked my phone, thumb already on the file. The speakers weren't necessary. Silence is an amplifier. Caleb's voice filled the space he'd used to humiliate me. "We need to wipe everything before Davidson checks the books. Transfer through the subsidiary. Close it down. Make it look like client error." Bradley flinched like the audio had weight. A glass somewhere clicked against marble. The sound ricocheted. I let the recording run until his 3:47 p.m. winked through the room like a strobe. Then I paused. "Fabricated," Caleb said immediately, eyes scanning for allies who no longer wished to be seen. I held up my phone so the camera caught the chandelier reflection. Time-stamped, locational vanity. "Cross-reference it with your Uber receipts, Bradley," I said. "Or the conference badges you didn't use, or the Wi-Fi log you shouldn't have used." I placed a paper beside the phone, Fitzgerald account transaction chain, and another. March 28th, $42,000, Sherman Trust, and finally a glossy photo of the diamond case label from last night's event. Evidence doesn't convince the guilty. It liberates the witnesses. Marcus took a step forward, throat working. "My father's account," he said, not to me, to the air. "You touched." His voice collapsed. Jennifer spoke softly, looking at Bradley. "And the pills, missing from the cabinet. You said stress. I say theft." The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Men and women in dark jackets stepped out with the unhurried energy of people who do not need to raise their voices to command a room. Agent Patterson wasn't among them. That would have been theater. These were colleagues, performing the unglamorous rite of consequence. "Federal agents," the first announced, voice clipped. "No one leave. Davidson, Klein, and Associates partners, step aside." Bradley tried to move toward the hall. 2 agents redirected him with polite inevitability. The pianist stood, closed the lid over the keys like a mourner. Caleb found his last script. "Claire," he said, reaching for earnestness he had never owned. "We can talk. We can fix this. Don't do this here." "Here is exactly where," I said. "Humiliation is a public act. So is truth." He took a step toward me. I took one back and placed the silver USB on the marble between us. "Chain of custody is clean," I said to the nearest agent. "So are the IP logs, screen captures, and the audit. Originals saved in 3 locations." I nodded toward the chandelier. "Camera angles cover my arrival." Caleb's mouth opened, then closed. The agents began their procession. Names called, devices collected, quiet questions that were not requests. Jennifer reached into her clutch, withdrew the diamond necklace, and laid it beside the March 28th printout like a confession that finally decided to be useful. Marcus sank into a chair. The room grew that particular silence that follows a thunderclap, the kind where you can hear utensils settle and people decide who they are. Caleb looked around and realized there was no audience left, only witnesses. "You'll destroy me," he said, voice small. "No," I said, gathering my tote. "You did that. I just turned on the lights." He stared at me, waiting for the mercy I had spent 5 years misplacing. I did not offer it. I turned toward the elevator, heels clicking over the same marble that had learned both my humiliation and my posture. The agents moved past me with polite choreography. I didn't need to watch the rest. I had a patient waking up across town who would ask when he could play again. As the doors slid shut, I caught Caleb's face between them, finally uncomposed, a man learning the taste of his own line. Outside, the air felt lighter, the city tolerable. My phone vibrated. Mom. CNN ticker just broke the raid. Then Emma. "Proud of your math." Then a number I didn't recognize. Eleanor. I'm ready to testify. I texted back a single word to each, the only one I had left that fit. Done. By noon, the city had learned a new word: seizure. Bank apps froze like ponds in February. Phones lit with push alerts that spelled our private vocabulary in public type. Fitzgerald, shell, transfer, subsidiary. I drove back to the hospital, scrubbed in for rounds, and kept my eyes on the simple facts. Blood pressure stable, pain 310, incision clean. Mercy is measurable when you do it right. At 1:06 p.m., Diana Cole, my attorney, called from the courthouse steps. Arraignments start at 2, she said. Bradley in custody. Caleb detained pending conditions. What conditions? I asked, washing my hands until the water cooled truthfully. No passport, GPS monitor, surrender of devices, no contact with you. We'll also file an emergency protective order. She paused. Your mother was right about the safety deposit box. A1754 opened last August. We've petitioned to stop any access. I stood at the window overlooking Erie Street, watching a delivery truck try to parallel park without cussing. What about the condo transfer? He flashed at me. Drafted, never filed, Diana said. A prop. The judge will see it as bad theater. Also, good news. Eleanor called me. She's prepared to testify. The afternoon moved in clean clicks. At 2:12 p.m., the clerk stamped our temporary restraining order. At 2:28, the divorce petition filed with a list of undisclosed assets long enough to justify its own table of contents. Art storage in Schaumburg, $300,000. Boat in Charlevoix, Wisconsin duplex, cash purchase, crypto wallets, $200,000. At 2:45, a text from Agent Patterson. Initial interviews complete. Your audio is a spine. I finished notes on my post-op and took the stairwell down because elevators are for people who haven't learned to breathe in narrow spaces. At 3:09, Jennifer appeared at the lobby door of the hospital like a woman who had finally read her own instructions. Her hair was pinned back. Her face had decided to be plain. He's at the federal building, she said, and I told the agent about the pills. You did the right thing, I said. I did the necessary thing, she answered. Right would have been earlier. At 4:17, Eleanor called. She did not waste my time. I met with the prosecutor, she said. I gave them the pension statements and my investigator's notes. I told them the first time I thought, this is not my son. The date lines up with the first transfer. December 12th, I said. December 12th, she repeated, as if finally choosing a language she could live with. By 5 p.m., news feeds looped the same 19 seconds of the boardroom doors opening on men who thought doors were for other people. Commentators said what commentators say: breach of trust, systemic failure, moral rot, as if those phrases could stitch anything back together. My favorite clip wasn't the raid. It was a photo from years ago of Caleb and Marcus clapping at a ribbon cutting. Someone had cropped it tight until the ribbon looked like a tourniquet. I went home to the condo I was no longer pretending to share. Boxes waited like obedient soldiers. I labeled 3 more: tax files, his, comms, work, 2 old phones, recovered passwords, personal return, gifts I hadn't worn. The doorbell rang at 6:32. Caleb. He looked smaller without an office. The ankle monitor sat under a pant leg that tried to ignore it. He held his palms up the way boys do when they claim empty pockets. You can't be here, I said. There's an order. I needed to apologize, he said, scanning the hall for an audience he still believed existed. You've always loved your stage. Violating conditions is not a monologue, I answered, already dialing. He stepped forward, voice pleading with a smear of rage. Claire, you don't understand the pressure. That line is a relic, I said. Leave, or I finish this conversation with a badge present. For the first time, I saw it. The moment the performance exhausted him, he faltered. What do I do? You tell the truth under oath, I said. You make restitution, and you stop calling cruelty a career. Down the hall, the elevator chimed. He backed away, dignity dragging like a broken strap. You're destroying me. No, I said. You chose fire. I built a firebreak. He pushed the button with too much force and vanished while I finished my report to dispatch. Case number already a part of our vocabulary. 10 minutes later, a patrol car idled below. I signed what they needed, my handwriting neat as sutures. Inside, the condo felt quiet in a new way, like a room that has exchanged secrets for air. I poured water into a glass, the sound loud in the kitchen, and set tomorrow's clothes on the chair he always called too soft. It held their weight. Somewhere downtown, he waited to learn whether money can forgive math. The divorce hearing arrived with the punctuality of winter. Judge Ramirez read from a docket that could make anyone lose faith in romance and civil procedure at the same time. Diana arranged our exhibits like a gallery of consequences: crypto wallets, A1754 inventory, Schaumburg storage receipts, boat registration, Wisconsin deed. She saved the quiet masterpiece for last, a spreadsheet Caleb had kept, meticulous, color-coded, tracking both stolen funds and household expenses with the same precision. Betrayal as bookkeeping. Mr. Hartley, the judge said, why were these assets undisclosed? Caleb looked at his hands, the manicure grown out. I was ashamed, he said. Noted, the judge replied, unpersuaded. Shame does not erase math. Diana stood. Your Honor, we request the following. Exclusive possession of the condominium to my client. Freeze maintained on all disputed accounts. Forfeiture of art assets purchased with marital funds, and no spousal support for Mr. Hartley due to criminal conduct. Caleb's attorney tried to resurrect an old tune. Dr. Morrison's substantial income saves lives, Diana cut in. His income stole them. The judge didn't smile, but something in his posture approved. Motion granted in part and substantial part. Mr. Hartley leaves the marriage with personal effects, ongoing legal fees, and nothing else. Eleanor testified by affidavit. Jennifer submitted receipts and dates. Sarah Coleman sent in a recording where Bradley joked about creative solutions while listing victims like line items. The courtroom, a place that has seen every kind of sorrow, listened politely while a certain kind of man learned a foreign language: accountability. After lunch, HR at the hospital summoned me, not with suspicion, but with solidarity. We saw his texts threatening your reputation, the director said, sliding copies across the table. For the record, your standing here is unimpeached. She nodded to the plaque on the wall listing surgical milestones. My name appeared 3 times before the paint dried. If you need time, take it. I need the OR at 6 a.m., I said. Time wastes me. I met Agent Patterson outside, where wind knifed along Superior Street. He briefed me on charges that sounded like Latin: wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, but came down to one English sentence. He lied for profit. Sentencing in months, he said. You'll have a chance to speak. I'll have more than a chance, I answered. I'll have dates. On the train home, Emma texted a photo of our parents at the kitchen table, mugs steaming. Mom held up a sign, marker on scrap paper. Proud of your math. Dad added, come Sunday, lemon pound cake. I took a breath that reached the bottom of me and said yes out loud in an empty car. That evening, women gathered in my living room. Margaret, Linda, Patricia, Sarah, and 2 new faces brought by word of mouth. We spread documents like tarot that finally told the truth. We made a list called What We Keep: names, property, dignity, silence when it serves us and not them. We made another called What Ends: apologizing for asking questions, laughing when we're the joke, calling theft a misunderstanding. Monthly, Sarah said, pouring seltzer like champagne. Same time. Evidence or cake, bring one. Both, I said. Evidence needs cake. Later, I stood at the window with Eleanor's number on my phone. I sent her a single sentence. Thank you for arithmetic. She replied with something that felt like a blessing disguised as an audit. Accuracy is love in my language. Work found me, as it always does when noise fades. Harvard Medical School emailed about a panel on physician resilience. Stanford followed. A senator's aide asked if I'd consider a health policy working group, the kind of room where outcomes begin. I printed the invites and left them on the counter like lilies that don't wilt. Before bed, I walked through the rooms and spoke out loud to no one at all. "You don't live here," I told the ghost of his hand on my elbow. "I do." I put the wedding album in a box labeled Archive, Personal, Context, and slid it onto the highest shelf. I set the emerald dress in a garment bag with a tag that read, "Humiliation, Retired." I kept the clutch where it belonged, ready even when not needed. At 9:12 p.m., the hour that once carried his laughter, I poured tea and sent my article pitch to the New England Journal of Medicine, When High Achievement Meets Intimate Fraud, Clinical Notes on Evidence and Escape. I wrote the first paragraph with the same hands that close a chest without trembling. Tomorrow, I would decide whether to stand under that chandelier one more time, a year from now, as a buyer with keys, or to walk past it forever, proof that victory doesn't always need property to be real. A year has a way of making even marble forget. The Whitfields' ballroom, once dressed in noise and perfume, stands stripped bare, no chandeliers lit, no glasses clinking lies into shape. The management company offered me the space for pennies after the forfeiture. "Excellent bones," the broker said, as if history were just architecture. I came alone, keys jangling against the calm. Noon light slanted through the tall windows, catching dust like confetti. The floor where laughter once cracked beneath my shoes now reflected nothing but sky. I walked its length, hearing the faint echo of, "I'd rather kiss my dog than kiss you." That sentence used to live in my spine. Now it's just air, recycled and harmless. I set my tote on the same marble table where I'd laid the folder labeled Monday. Inside, I'd brought 3 things: a printed discharge summary from my last patient, a girl named Maya, valve repair, full recovery, the silver USB, now blank, and a lemon pound cake wrapped in parchment, my father's recipe. I cut a small piece and left it on the table, not as offering, but punctuation. Some victories don't need champagne. They just need sweetness that doesn't rot. My phone vibrated. Emma. "Mom says the cake smells like forgiveness." I smiled and typed back, "Forgiveness is expensive. This slice is paid for." From the mezzanine, I could see the street, a delivery truck, 2 teenagers laughing, an old woman walking her dog. The ordinary world, unbothered by empires. I thought of Eleanor testifying, of Jennifer selling her jewelry to fund the recovery fund, of Marcus learning how to be a son again. And I thought of Caleb, whose sentencing was scheduled for next week. The plea deal would give him 5 years, maybe 6, enough time to think, not enough to disappear. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is a scalpel, useful, sharp, meant to be sterilized and set down when the operation's done. What remains is precision. I walked toward the window and touched the glass. My reflection looked like my mother, soft jaw, patient eyes, hands that keep records. The city glowed behind her, and for a moment I imagined she whispered the same line she'd written on her sign. "Proud of your math." In the far corner of the empty ballroom, a lone maintenance worker swept. He looked up. "You buying this place?" I smiled. "No. I already took what was worth keeping." He nodded like a man who understood arithmetic without numbers. I left the keys on the table beside the slice of cake, zipped my tote, and walked out through the side door into late autumn light. The air smelled faintly of sugar and cold iron. People say closure is silence. I think it's documentation, proof that you existed, endured, and exited clean. As the wind lifted my coat, I spoke it aloud, the sentence I'd practiced for a year, but never said until now. At my age, I don't shout, I document, and this time, the record is me. If this story gave you strength, help us by sharing, liking, and hitting the notification bell. We'd love to hear in the comments which part of the story you liked most. See you tomorrow.